everybody, Riot Mort here, and it's time for another patch rundown. It's a bi-weekly tradition that we do every 2 weeks. And so Cyber City has launched. This will be the first patch, I guess, or the second patch of Cyber City. And yeah, so when we launched the set, generally there was, one comp that kind of took the lead. That was the strategist amp comp using Kabuko and Annie and things like that.
That's right.
After the B patch, though, things have gotten a little bit more wide. There's a lot of things playable. What's interesting about the meta right now is that there's definitely an established hierarchy, things like Cypher cash-outs, Rengar that are pretty good. And so we'll be making some minor adjustments in that space. But we're also seeing this is a good meta in the sense that people are still finding new comps. They're finding new ways to optimize things. And it's not really fully solved, despite what people would say. And so there's an argument here to not like wildly shake up the meta. And so this patch isn't going to be like giant transformative buffs and nerfs. A lot of the things that are good will still be good, but it is some slight changes to things to try to help a few more things. So yeah, let's just dive right into it and talk about what's going to be happening.
Okay, so Riot thinks this is actually a pretty good meta because they think that the meta is evolving, which is always true, by the way, in TFT. Some metas are faster and slower than others, but it is worth noting that they feel like the meta is good. Okay, but the most important thing is it's going to be this slide, actually. So let's go ahead and just jump into it.
So first off, on the system side, we've definitely launched the hack systems. We're pretty happy with it, but there's a couple things that could use some improvement. The first of which is that generally you're getting a bit too many resources from the hacks.
A bit.
So first off, on the bribe side of things, the gold augment bribes are going to go from 3, 4, 6. That's based on the stage. So a stage 2 gold augment bribe was 3 gold. Now it will be 2, 3, 5. So you'll be getting a little less gold from those augment hack bribes. On the prismatic side, it's going to go from 4, 6, 8 to also 2, 3, 5.
There you go.
So prismatic in particular, you're going to get a lot less gold from picking the prismatic 2-1 augment from the bribes. The other one is the hacked orb that pops out lots of orbs. Was giving approximately 10, 16, 25 gold of value.
Oh my
That was
God.
pretty inflationary also. So that's been nerfed to 6, 12, 18. So overall, these two things will lower the resources. We might still have more to go here, but we wanted to do it a little bit at a time rather than like a giant chunk that also hit like the XP curves and things like that. So we're going to start with this, see where the meta lands, and then go from there. Two other changes on the hack side of things. The first one is that trait category hacks will no longer appear on the Wandering Trainer's encounter. As much fun as it is to watch the person who got the Anima Wandering Trainer also then immediately be able to get their Wandering Trainer augment, So we're going to take that out and just make it a little less inflationary there. And then finally, the last one here, something we should have done before we launched, but it's going to get taken care of now.
Oh, thank God.
There's a hacked orb with health pickups in it, and you leave it alone for 2 rounds, what's going to happen is all of a sudden that hacked orb is going to get a mind of its own. It's going to get some rocket boots, and it's going to fly straight to your face, and you are going to pick up those health orbs, and you are not going to be able to cheese it. You are going to pick up those health orbs. So, enjoy.
Okay, so this is really important system changes. I think that fundamentally what's going on in TFT is that everyone is just getting too many items and golds and just general resources. And what's kind of creating a situation is that there's 2 things actually happening. One, everyone seems to be capping their boards really high. Endgame board states are just largely dictated about like if whether or not you can reach your 2-star 5 costs. And there's gonna be situations where I was in a lobby where there's someone that was rerolling Vhagar, and he at 5-2, 5-3 was hitting more legendaries than I was playing a fast 9 composition with around 4 costs as well. And that person had 0 econ augments. And it's purely because they hit so fast that they were able to kind of pressure the lobby win streak because they had lucky shops, and then that just kind of snowballed onto itself. And they had items for all of it, right? It's like it's one thing to hit all of it, but then also to be able to have items for all those 5 costs and cap too high. And that's where a lot of people are like saying, "Wow, this set it feels like I don't know how to win." Like you can top 4 a lot, but it feels like you're going 5th, 4th, 4th, 3rd, 6th, and you take like 1/8, and it undoes all like the 4 or 5 fourths that you got, right? The top 4. And so a lot of that has to do with stuff like this. This is actually the biggest part of the patch so far. I mean, obviously it's the first slide I'm looking at and I'm spending time yapping about it. But a lot of it has to do with the foundation amount of resources you get because it enables everything else. And not only that, it also covers bad economic decision making. I know this sounds probably like a little bit harsh, but there's a lot of people who make tons of mistakes with their econ, but it's okay because you won't get punished for it as much. You rolled a 0 and you really shouldn't have. That should be a game losing decision. But the reality is you get 25 gold out of nowhere at the end of stages of the game. And not only that, that orb could also be like the missing units you didn't hold, right? You didn't hold things like the Silas pair for your Anima squad, or your Seraphine pair, and now all of a sudden you get rewarded for hitting all that, and you get 20 gold, and you get to push 9, and now you hit Aurora, and that has them stabilizing. So it ends up kind of creating bad habits for a lot of these players because they just know that later in the game it doesn't really matter as much as long as you get to these like end game board states. Like as long as you get to Aurora Viego, as long as you hit your Kabuko if you're playing like that Cyber Boss board, for example, so on and so forth. So this is a really profound change. All is that to say, I'm not just here complaining. I'm just saying this is a really important foundational change, and I don't think it's going to be enough. I think it's going to be kind of lame, but I'm pretty sure the true values of this should be 1, 2, 3. I'm pretty sure the true values of this should be 1, 2, 3, and that's already kind of pushing it. But it's boring from a mechanics perspective. So I think a lot of people are going to be like, well, that's just like stupid. Like if you the set mechanic is 1 gold on my augment at 2-1. But that's actually how much it should be, I think. It's such a profound deal. If you remember, if you guys remember like Birthday Present, the augment used to say when you leveled up, you get 2 gold. They moved it from 1 gold to 2 gold. It used to level up, you get a random 2-star unit based off your level -1, right? And then it gave you an extra gold. They buffed that from 1 to 2, and that all of a sudden turned that augment from like a 4.7 back when we had stats to like a 3.9 because how it affects your econ breakpoints and how it snowballs momentum and tempo is so profound. Now you're getting something like 3, 4, 5 gold. It's just so impactful. And so these kinds of things are very important to get right. And I think that these values are still too high, but I appreciate that they're trying to at least like rein it in and take it step by step. Well, this probably tells me that we'll get it right by patch 3 or 4. Probably patch 3 is probably where it's gonna land correctly-ish, and then they could probably tweak it further. But yeah, I mean, it's actually just crazy to look at right now. It's just crazy that 25 gold can come out of nowhere. That's like mind blowing to me. 25 gold. That is that's how much you get for invested plus. And then this mechanic was just so silly. The hacked orbs containing health pickups. This is something that people still ask about, but if you didn't know, if you don't pick up the permanent HP buff on the orb, that orb would stay on your board, and that would improve your carousel priority. And so everyone else would be at 110, you're at 100. You could legitimately be second pick on the carousel if you're at full HP, and that is also dumb because the whole point of carousel is that it's a comeback mechanic. It's supposed to be something for the people who are behind. But if you're 100 HP and you're streaking and you're second pick because of the crazy HP and the way things moved up, well, guess what? That actually messes things up as well. So this is a really important change. Also, this trade category hack stuff was really dumb too. So good change.
You are not going to be able to cheese it. You are going to pick up those health orbs. All right, on the trait side, Boombots. Boombots 2 and 4 has its place, especially if you have an emblem. Unfortunately, the 6-piece just isn't worth chasing right now. So the 6-piece Boombot trait is going to get buffed.
I need to move my cam.
It's going to go from 225 times 2 to 275 times 2. Pretty substantial buff here to 6 Boombot. So if you're able to get Boombot working, this should open up some new lines. It's going to do a lot more damage. Pretty cool here.
Hi, Big
Cypher.
Mort.
It says minor adjustments to some cash outs. I know a lot of you are probably going, well, what does that mean? That could mean anything. Generally, this is actually buffs to some of the lamer cash outs. For example, one of the changes is the cash out where you get all the techies, where it's like Mordekaiser 2, Fiddle 2, etc. We changed the Zyra 2 to a Zyra 3 to make that a bit more of an attractive cash out.
Okay.
So this isn't actually like a big buff or nerf. It's just like some of the bad cash outs are better, and some of the
that's a good thing.
Some of the cash outs that were like not quite the right value got adjusted. It is very minor. So this is not going to change Cypher a lot. Cypher's still going to be a very good trait.
Okay, that's actually a really big buff to Cypher because part of the only thing holding back Cypher currently is just how troll some of these cash outs are. Like, you just gotta look at this, man, and I just gotta tell you, you're looking, you're trying to cash out, and you're at this like really crucial interval of like 250, 290, 330, and you look and you're like, well, I could get a rating item, like an artifact, which could be completely swing the game, or I could get 2-star Shyvana, 2-star Veigar, 2-star Zyra, and like Mordekaiser. And that's just like a profound difference. I understand that the gold value might be what they're like writing across, but that they're undervaluing something like this, and they're far overvalued. I mean, okay, I part of it is gold and it's tempo, but like again, some of these are just like really troll because it's not worth the HP that you're trading for it. And so by buffing some of these like terrible ones, I think he said this 2-star Zyra becomes a 3-star Zyra maybe. That's actually a really good big buff for Cypher because now the fail cases is not nearly as bad. It's not nearly as bad.
Golden Ox. Golden Ox has definitely been the trait that has been pretty much ignored at the highest elos, especially at 4 and 6. It's pretty playable at 2, you know. But 4 and 6 is mostly not really played. So we're taking a really big swing here.
Oh,
this is going to teach us some things if we need to adjust Golden Ox like much more drastically in the future.
Oh, God.
But for now, we're kind of like we did with 8 Sorcerers in the last set, where we buffed it really hard. It's like, no, there's numbers where it's playable. This is a big buff. So Golden Ox 4 and 6 are going to be doing more base damage. And remember that base damage scales up. And the chance to drop gold will go up from 50-75 to 60-100. So if you get a Golden Ox emblem, you should consider this. Now, my read on this is that high elo, it probably still won't be amazing. But especially at like lower elos, give it a try. If you have the right spot for this, you can really snowball. My expectation, here's my shot call, and you can hold me to it, is we'll see Golden Ox at like Masters Plus have like a 42% top 4 rate, but actually like a 20% win rate, because when it wins, it's going to win hard.
I can see it.
But we'll see.
I can see
if
it.
I'm accurate on that or how that plays out. But there's my shot call that you can hold me accountable for.
What that usually means, by the way, if something's a 42% win rate, but 20% or 45% top 4 rate, but like a 20% win rate, that actually means that it's very good. It's OP. It's just that you're only supposed to play it every so often. And what that usually means is that at the top echelons of like GM Challenger is that it's actually just broken because the good players will know when to play it versus not. Versus there's a lot of people mucking up the stats just because they think it's fun and they want to play it. Like, for example, the stats on Cypher units will always look really bad, but I think everyone's kind of understood that Cypher is really, really good. And that's been the same case of Fortune, Mercenaries, so on and so forth.
One other note is that Golden Ox in Hyper Roll was a little too easy to play. You could hit, from the right positions, you could hit 130, 140% damage amp.
Oh.
So now in Hyper Roll, it will increase by 2 gold spent each time, making it a little less of a free, first place. All right, Nitro. Nitro is getting
ruining the Hyper Roll meta.
A stat adjustment rework here. There's a lot of lines here, but the TLDR here is if you play Tempo Nitro, it's going to get worse. And if you play Reroll Nitro, it's going to get better. How are we doing that? You're going to get less HP per scrap. So if you look at the exact same, 2-star Shyvana, 2-star Nidalee, 2-star Kindred that you played to level 8, it's going to have a pretty substantial, like 25% less health than it did before.
Yeah, wow.
And its spell heal will have gone down.
Wow.
And its grenade damage will have gone down.
Wow.
And if you were playing 4 Nitro, although I know mostly in high elo they don't, its laser damage will also have gone down. So pretty big nerf to Tempo Nitro. But if you played Reroll Nitro, you'll notice the scrap per star level went from 4 at 3-star to 6 at 3-star. So if you Reroll Nitro, you're actually going to be getting a lot more Chrome. And that's going to allow it to actually scale up to be even stronger than it is on live right now. And so the thing to note here also is that's AP. So like the less Chrome and or more Chrome and less HP evens out. But on the pure AP side, this is just a buff to Nitro. Nitro is going to have more AP at the absolute maximum, which is why we had to tone down that heal and that laser a little bit.
Okay.
But if you can get a really good like Starry Night Nitro spot, I expect this to be pretty darn good if you can 3-star everything pretty quick, because that T-Hex will come out a lot quicker. It'll be a lot bigger, and yeah. So, again, mostly to nerf Nitro Tempo here is the big play. Syndicate.
Okay, so this is gonna completely change the meta, because right now at the highest elos and across most, like I would say Diamond Plus right now, is that you have Nitro on half the boards because it is the best opener, and it also enables the most amount of other carries because it's just like the best way to play into Misfortune. It's the best way to play into early game Zeri. Even if you end up pivoting out of Exotech or pivoting it into Exotech, you end up playing Nitro in the beginning game. And the traits are very dynamic. So you're able to actually like flex into a bunch of different traits. You can play Annie right now in Nitro. This, by the way, people are saying less flex, hoggers. The thing is, this is what it means for something to be flex. It means that something like Nitro is OP. Nitro is extremely OP. If you have an Nitro opener, you can actually play 4 cost. If you don't, you have to reroll. That's what a lot of people's impression is of the patch. And I think that's generally accurate. But that's also what it means because flexible tends to mean agnostically very robust and powerful. So yeah, they're making Nitro less flex by like a lot. But that's partially because it was profoundly overpowered. Yeah. You can still get the same 2-3. You can still flex. I mean, part of what makes Nitro Flex so powerful is that the core just gives you so many stats that I think someone was saying basically playing Nitro into stage 4 is like having another 2-star 4-cost tank. So like, who cares if you don't hit a Leona 2? You have your robot, so you can play Sejuani 1, Nitro, and then play your carry. And that'll be totally fine because so now you only have to worry about 2-starring Misfortune. You only have to worry about 2-starring an Annie. And that is why Nitro's really good. If it's like losing this is actually a huge detriment to like the Nitro flex. So sure, you could flex. I don't mind bot 4 flex, especially if you're in my lobby. Go ahead and try it. It's a lot like how Black Rose was OP at the start of last set. Yes, exactly. It's actually very, very, very similar to Black Rose. A summon trait that only takes half your board, and then the other half you can play any package as long as it matches the traits. And that flex was cool, but way too ubiquitous. The thing about Nitro that's different than Black Rose was dependent on the 4 cost. It was dependent on the Elise. This was just dependent on whether or not you start off with the game with Shyvana or an Elise. Those are like that's a very, very big difference than whether or not you can hit an Elise with Black Rose. So if anything, I kind of like where Nitro was. I think it's too good of an opener, but I kind of appreciate that. I actually think if you're still playing this patch, and I'm going to play a couple games after this before the Snapshot watch party, I'm pretty sure it's correct for 6 to 7 people to play Nitro in the game. And I think it's fine because there's so many copies of it that anyone can play it.
Syndicate, we are reducing many of the 7 Syndicate powers. It's just a little too good. Sometimes 7 Syndicates beating 10 Anima, things like that. So
wait, really?
Braum is getting his defenses lowered. Misfortune is going to be doing less pierce damage. Shaco, less on-kill reset. Now, there is one more change that needs to happen for this trait that we weren't able to get in because of localization changes. It'll go in next patch, but if you want to quote-unquote abuse it, yes, you can abuse 7 Syndicate, but 7 Syndicate Twisted Fate goes from 1 card to 3 cards. It triples his damage. That's a little much. So if you get 7 Syndicate, try to play around Twisted Fate. He'll still be the best part of that comp. But like I said, that'll probably get hit next patch. But again, this only affects 7 Syndicate, so no changes to 3 or 5.
7 Syndicate stats are really good if you ever saw it. It just makes them all really good, so this makes a lot of sense. No comments really there.
One last thing on the trait side here is Exotech. Now, Exotech, we're pretty happy with where Exotech is. If anything, I would say a baseline Exotech game is like kind of where we want a nice vertical comp to be. That being said, there are certain items that are underperforming and a couple items that are overperforming. So our goal here is to kind of take that and level it off without really affecting the overall power of Exotech. So on the overpowered side, Flux Capacitor and Pulse Stabilizer were the 2 best items. and those are going to get a little bit of a nerf, just a small one. Less attack speed on Flux Capacitor, so that'll affect like Zeri players most likely. And Pulse Stabilizer, a little less AD, a little less crit, so that'll nerf things like Jhin, for example. But on the buff side, Cyber Coil will get 5 more armor and MR. The mark duration will last a little longer, and you'll be able to heal more from it, so better for like Sejuani.
Okay.
Hollow Bow is going to get 10% more attack speed, 5% more AP, and 20% more crit after cast.
Damn.
This should help out Varus a little bit. And then Hyper Fangs is going to get some more AP as well, and then some stored damage percent going up. And so Hyper Fangs gets the smallest of the buffs, but it actually is supposed to help it be like you could play it on someone like Varus, for example. Obviously, it's meant for Nefiri, but even someone like Zeri can hopefully benefit from this a little bit. And again, our goal here is that all the Exotech items should hopefully be around the same power after this, and that should help.
I actually agree that I think Exotech's in a pretty good spot. I actually think this Exotech is kind of overrated. Or rather, let me rephrase. I think Exotech's popularity currently on ladder does not justify how good it actually is. I think a lot of people are overplaying Zeri. I think it's just fun to play around it. I think people are being very lazy about the meta right now, and they say, oh, I have a Flux Capacitor or Pulse Stabilizer, and I have half of a Rage Blade. I'm just going to go ahead and force it. And I think that's like a level 1 strategy that can work, but then you find yourself in a 4-way Exotech contest in some way, and everyone's like complaining about the game. And I actually don't think that's like it's like good enough, because you just have Zeri 1 and they have a Rengar, not even a Rengar 3, they have a Rengar 2, and it just kills your Zeri. It's like, what are you gonna do about it? Not very good. So I think that actually it's pretty overrated relative to its popularity. But I do agree with everything that they're doing. Like in principle, I think that Flux Capacitor and Pulse Stabilizer are far better than the others, so this is a correct nerf. And I think that Hollow Bow, Hyper Fangs, and Cyber Coil is much worse. So I think this buff is correct. Oh, Mort, thanks for the raid. Oh, funny enough, I'm actually talking to Mort Dog right now. So I think that the buff directions are pretty good. Now, from what I've been told, Hyper Fangs is actually already a pretty solid item. It's like a B+ tier 1. And it's because people weren't using it right. For example, one person was saying Hyper Fangs in the Fury was really good, and people weren't playing it. I have some people, I know some people are spamming in chat beforehand, but I've actually heard this from multiple people. Dish Soap was telling me that as well last week. And so this is like week-old conversations. So we'll see. And I was also told that Nefiri is getting buffed as well. So, but I think in general, I really like the read that Exotech is a good baseline, because I actually agree. I think it's strong, but you can't over contest it. And it has good ceiling. I also talked about this before, but I actually think Exotech is one of the better verticals they've made in quite some time, because it's not just 7 Exotech or nothing. There's a lot of use cases for 3, 5, and 7, and it changes based off what item order you get and how the lobby is looking. And there's proper payoff, right? It's one of the first times we've seen a mid break point of a vertical feel like it's playable in the right circumstances. And that's compared to Anima Squad, which feels like, Anima Squad is just basically 7 or Splash. So I appreciate where Exotech is right now.
All right, on the champion side, Poppy unfortunately kind of feels like the weakest 1 cost right now. And if you ever decide to make Poppy the cyber boss, you usually kind of regret it. Even if you get a Poppy 3 from Build-A-Bud with a Bramble Vest, and it's like, whoa, yeah, not really.
A double buff?
So Poppy is going to get her spell damage
50%?
buffed pretty substantially. It's almost double here.
Jeez.
And so remember, Poppy does get a bunch of her damage from her armor as well. So this isn't like truly doubling her spell damage. It's just doubling the AP part of it, which makes her benefit from Cyber Boss well. But so again, if you get like an early Poppy 3 with a Bramble Vest and you make it a Cyber Boss, you should be happier with the damage, is kind of the goal here. Shaco,
dude, he's Nefiri buffs.
When we did the first nerf on PBE, we brought him from 275 down to 300. He's not really running over the meta now. The first patch is done. I'm a little nervous about Shaco's and Zed's and Rengar's running around, but Shaco does need to be playable. So Shaco is getting a buff.
Says who?
On his spell AD ratio from 275 to 300%. So he'll be able to heal more off of that and do some good things. All right, Nefiri. For those of you that like to count the number of buffs, that's 5 buffs Therefore, Nefiri is obviously going to be quadruple S tier because that's how we balance things. We count the number of buffs.
Yes.
No, but
now
real
you're
talk
getting
here
it more.
is Nefiri does need to go up in power. There's a few people that have figured out some very narrow spots where you can play Nefiri, but overall this champion's not really seeing a lot of play. So we're giving Nefiri a little attack speed. It's basically a little bit of everything to overall increase her power by about 12 to 15%. But a tiny amount of AD, tiny amount of attack speed. The primary part of her spell will hit a little harder. The packmate part of her spell will hit a little harder. And you notice at 3-star, these buffs aren't as severe. So, for example, 3-star Nefiri doesn't benefit from the Alpha's buff, barely benefits from the packmate buff. But 1 and 2-star are pretty terrible. And so that's going to get fixed. All right, Twisted Fate. Twisted Fate is a playable comp right now. And some of you might be looking at this going, what? What the heck is this crazy buff? The reality is the difference between Twisted Fate with the hat and Twisted Fate without the hat, kind of laughable, like insanely laughable. If you've ever tried to play Twisted Fate without the hat, that is not a unit. That is a unit doing way less damage than it should be.
Yes.
And so without the hat, TF is getting a 25% buff. So if you want to play TF without the hat in like a rapid fire build, he should actually, contribute to fights now. Sweet. That's a good thing. But to compensate for that, TF with a hat is just a tiny too strong, just a little, not a lot. He's not running over the meta or anything. So he's getting the very smallest of nerfs. So if you're looking at like a normal TF reroll comp, that comp is being nerfed by this, but this could buff things like a 4 rapid fire build or having him as a secondary with like Darius as the hat champion, for example. Okay. This might incentivize you to put the hat on somebody else. Without feeling like TF just lost, half his damage.
Okay, so Poppy buffs. We just do a quick recap of Poppy buffs. That's pretty good, I would assume. Poppy is not very exciting. He's entirely right about that. Shaco, I actually don't like when Shaco's good. I really hate one-cost assassins historically. When Kha'Zix was really good, for example, that was really dumb. And I think there was a couple of others that were around. I can't remember off the top of my head. I really hate especially one that like scales infinitely. So I actually hate Shaco, and hope that he never becomes meta. I actually think he's in a he's actually underrated currently in the meta. He's almost not played at all at high elo, but the stats would kind of lead you to believe that he is playable at like a mid B tier, and I think that's where he should stay. But you know what? Every 2 months or so, I see a post on Reddit where they say, you know what? Assassins weren't that bad. Backline access needs to be improved. I'm tired of everyone just playing front to back. Assassins weren't that bad. Make assassins great again. And I think those people are idiots. Okay, that's a little too strong. I think that post is dumb. Okay, you get what I'm trying to say. I feel like those people should not be listened to because I think assassins are very, very inherently frustrating to play against. Now, I think Shaco is also one of those snowball things where if people just snowball with Shaco, it becomes very, very difficult. I think if you played PBE, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you played PBE, Shaco was extremely dominant on the first patch where you would see multiple Shaco players top 4. And it would be someone playing a Shaco 2, a Shaco 3, and a Shaco 3. There was literally like 3 Shaco players in the top 4 pretty often in PBE on day 1. It was disgusting. And it was not very fun. You never had a chance to actually tempo. But you know what? Hey, it solves the capped board state situation. Because you never will be able to survive to your hacked orbs if you just get murdered by Shaco. Yay, clowns. I mean, okay, that being said, Shaco buff is justified for people who love Shaco. For all 12 of you in chat. There are dozens of us. Nefiri buffs. This is actually a fine set of buffs a week ago. I think Nefiri actually is starting to reverse an opinion of being like a fine unit. I do think this will make Nefiri a strong unit, period. Right now, I would say that Nefiri is middle of the pack. In terms of strength for a 2 cost. But the thing is, Nefiri is only played in specific situations. Like you play it as like an item holder in your Nitro setups. And it's actually Jin's preferred duo carry. You would actually play Jin reroll in Nitro, and you would actually want to itemize Nefiri. And now it actually might inverse. It actually might be Neferi reroll, and then Jin's a support. Like, just give Jin leftover stuff, like random Last Whisper, random Giant Slayer. And then if you have Hyper Fangs, it's like, okay, I'm going to play Nitro reroll with Neferi. So I can actually see a world where Neferi reroll becomes an S tier comp. Just because it flew a little bit under the radar, people optimize it more. And now when people realize really powerful combos, they buff Hyper Fangs, they buff Neferi, they buff reroll around Nitro. All those things considering can make this probably. I'm predicting this to be one of the best comps of one of the best new comps of the patch. Who knows how strong exactly? It's just there's so many changes that it's just likely to be strong. It can't be bad if after all these buffs. Just like even 3 of these buffs is a big deal, let alone 5. I know, counting number of buffs. You should see Mort's game. I actually was told that he was literally just playing Neferi right before as his final game, so we'll see. Twisted Fate. This is actually okay. So I think this buff is very good or change rather, because it's technically a rebalancing from the top and the end. And this is a lot of people. Okay, so a lot of people accuse. This is gonna sound like I'm trying to butter up to Mort, but like this is actually the importance of playing the game, because a lot of people could just look at the Twisted Fate data and just use the end game stats, but the pattern of how Twisted Fate is being played with and without Syndicate is a huge difference. And I think this is like it's like very subtle, because we can just look. So let's say next patch, Neferi is overpowered and just completely busted. And everyone's gonna be like, well, yeah, does Riot even play their own game? I think this is actually an example of Riot playing their own game, because they understand the difference of what Twisted Fate is like with and without it. And rapid fire Twisted Fate is not a thing, and Twisted Fate is only a thing with Syndicate. And stuff like this is like very subtle, but it's really important to get right, because if you ever try to carry, I've had Twisted Fate 2 with 2 items out damaged by my Kog'Maw 2, just because Kog'Maw I played Twisted Fate with like a Shojin whatever, and then Kog'Maw with Boombot activated, and Kog'Maw was out damaging Twisted Fate. It was embarrassing. This guy is terrible without Syndicate. So I think that's just a good call. Just a good call.
All right, on the 3 cost side, this is probably one of the riskier changes, and I think might open some things up. We saw a little bit of this on their PBE testing, though the person didn't really dive too deep into it. But Jarvan's not that exciting, so we're going to make him exciting. Jarvan is going to get 10 AD, so that's a pretty big chunk. His shield's going to go up. That's good. And the spell damage is going to go from 200% AD to 350% AD. So generally, this is supposed to make him a little tankier and benefit from things like Slayer, and make him a little bit better in Slayer, maybe even do a tiny bit of damage from Golden Ox. But who knows? Maybe there's also some silly builds where you give him like an IE and a Titans, and he does some silly shenanigans. We'll see. But explore Jarvan a little bit. I'm sure someone will cook something up with this. But Jarvan should be pretty cool.
Bro, 6 Golden Ox Jarvan, just cleaving and one-shotting boards. Oh man, this is a massive buff. Okay, Jarvan. I might never sell Jarvan again.
Rengar. Rengar is a champion that when he gets going is incredibly frustrating. Shocker. We made a backline access champion that gets frustrating. The big thing with Rengar, though, is that he ends up actually getting really tanky. It's not just his damage. It's like, this dude's durable, right? You put him in a Titans and a BT, and it's like, he just heals and heals and heals, and it's kind of annoying. Now, that being said, we're not trying to completely neuter Rengar. My shot call here is Rengar will still be close to top A tier after this, if not even still very good. And
it's because of the artifact.
Testing, he's still quite good. This is not going, like, if you're like a Rengar hater, this isn't your patch note. But he is going to do less damage with his spell, and he is going to get less free healing. Now, again, it's not going to eliminate him from the meta. That's not the point. The point is light nerf. So,
yeah, and it's a light nerf, but the reality is Rengar, when they nerf Rengar, it just makes it so that you only really want to play him if you have the artifacts. This is the same thing, the problem with Nocturne, if you remember the previous set, the Automata Quake Striker Nocturne, where it felt like Nocturne was not really played unless you had an artifact. My interpretation of how this is trending, I don't know if we're there with exactly with this change, but it'll be one of those things where Rengar is just going to be a unit that you play Portable Forge with, Living Forge with, some Artifact Anvil start. And that actually might make us reevaluate some of the artifact powers, but they do want artifacts to be really powerful and sharp. So they have some difficult design or dev choices around the trade-offs of that. But every set we have one melee champion that's like completely gated by artifacts. And I predict that Rengar is just going to be there at one point. They're probably going to nerf Rengar again. Because it's still going to be like the whole like, oh my god, eye roll, he has artifact stuff. But that's always going to be a problem unless they want to nerf the artifact. But they've nerfed the artifact. That artifact is useless on anyone except for very specific stuff. So they don't want to have that situation. That dynamic is like really tricky. Why do you think people love Smeech but hate Rengar? Because I think of the branding. I think Smeech has really good PR because he is a goofy looking character and his name is fun to say. But Rengar, I mean, it's an acronym for anger. So I mean, it's like, yeah, you can't. It evokes bad emotions in you. But Smeech is just fun to say.
All right, Annie. Annie, after the B patch where we took Tibbers and said you're barely worth it anymore. That's fine. Tibbers is doing what we want, but the Annie part of Annie has never been that exciting, and now we can put some power back into Annie. So Annie's base spell damage is going to go up about 8%. And the mini fireballs are also going to go up a decent amount. So hopefully Annie casting spells can be worth it again. Can put Annie on par with some of the other 4 costs without putting all that power into Tibbers. Cho'Gath. This one's a little complicated. But the goal of this Cho'Gath change is that right now you cannot play Cho'Gath outside of 6 Bruiser. Because so much of the power of his spell requires the scaling of 6 Bruiser. So instead, the health gain from his spell will no longer scale with percent HP. It will be a flat number that gets added at the end of all equations. The hope here is that a 2 Bruiser Cho'Gath might actually be playable. You're not going to have to play 6 Bruiser. 6 Bruiser is still the best thing for him, but it won't just multiply him and double multiply him. Because the thing is, if you have a, let's say, 5,000 health Cho'Gath, and then you had 6 Bruiser that's raising that, and then the spell is also being raised. It was double dipping, which wasn't okay. And so basically we're trying to get rid of that double dipping here. Now, as an adjustment to this, he scales really well with percent health. So still having things like Warmogs is good. He'll do a little SAP. TLDR, though, again, is that hopefully this makes 2 and 4 Bruiser Cho'Gath a bit better, while 6 Bruiser Cho'Gath is like about the same. That's the goal. Let us know if it lands there. But that's what we're trying to do here.
Am I stupid? I feel like I just listened to more explain for 2 minutes, and I feel like I understand it less. I thought I was like reading it. I'm like, okay, I get it. But then like as he explains, I'm like, wait, I don't get it at all. I think I'm just gonna have to wait and see what the stats say and what China says. But I don't like. Usually China dives into these numbers. They have like dedicated YouTube equivalent on it's Billy's website. They have Billy accounts dedicated to mathing this stuff out. I'll just watch one of their videos. I don't get it.
All right, Misfortune. This is a really light change. It's not going to, like, if you're saying Misfortune's OP right now, this changes nothing. But the difference between Misfortune with her hat and without, kind of like TF, a little much. So Misfortune without her hat gets buffed. Misfortune with her hat stays the same. It was always 12 waves. It's still 12 waves. But now if you want to play like Dynamo without Syndicate, that should be a bit better. And you should be able to consider that option. So, and yes, everyone's going, poor hat got nerfed. Yes, I guess we kind of nerfed the hat all over the place. But so Misfortune should be playable, maybe a little bit better outside of Syndicate.
That's a good change, actually. And Misfortune already is the most flex AD carry at the moment. It should theoretically be someone like a Philios, but Philios is kind of weak. Maybe we'll see that change in a little bit. We haven't fixed all the 4 costs. So I like this change, actually. Mort says his scale... This is Cho'Gath. His spell scales with HP, and Bruiser makes that bigger. This means double dips. Now it doesn't double dip. Okay. So that means I don't want to build HP on him? Like, before, like, you build a bunch of HP items on him. You know what? I'll wait and find out. Annie buffs are good. I think Annie is a little bit on the weak side. Actually, maybe as a hot take, Annie has always been a little bit like overrated in terms of strength, even going back to the strategists. It was more about the way you could fast 9 reliably and get to the 5 cost. Imagine playing Annie with strategist, but you never hit like the 5 cost. Like back Kabuko was like, Prime Kabuko was insane. The guy was like Shaquille O'Neal in his prime. But now Kabuko is like probably like the Celtics Shaq. He's like, all right, I guess. Not really. So like Annie was actually completely propped up by 5 costs. And it's just that she happened to be the 4 cost you stabilized on stage 4. So it gave you a really strong impression that she was the most powerful unit in the comp, but she wasn't. So it is actually a proper buff, I think. But they are also buffing Nefiri, so maybe there's like some kind of amp thing going on. Like, who knows? Maybe it's like Nefiri, amp, reroll, nitro, and then you cap with like Annie holding AP items or something, and then I'm not entirely sure. Just keep an eye out for that. 3-star Zed now glides quickly. Oh wait, he hasn't talked about this yet. One sec.
Finally, Z3. This is a minor change, but Z3 was not the lowest, but kind of frustrating. It's like you hit a Z3 with really good items, and then all of a sudden he would throw his shuriken, dash it like the front line, kill them, and then slowly walk to the back line.
Let me move chat in case
while the Zeri repeatedly shoots the Zed in the face, and then the Zed would die, and you would be very, very sad. So to make Z3 feel better, Z3 will now glide very quickly to his target instead. So Zed will fly towards them and kill them much quicker. So Z3, better.
This happened to more. I feel like it's a personal story of him. Okay, that's a fine change though. Annie's decent now. I think Annie's still decent now. Yeah, exactly.
Samira, she got hit pretty hard by the B patch. Little weak. She's only a little weak. She does require hitting 2-star to be playable. But either way, needs some of her base AD back. Gives her about a 10% buff. This should put Samira back on the table. So hopefully Samira's as good as the other 5 costs now.
Amp looking good. Looking real good.
Side, 2 changes here. Nothing major. Suspicious Trench Coat, a little low. Just kind of underperforming. We want Suspicious Trench Coat to be fun. So it's going to trigger a little sooner. And the clones will have more health. So Suspicious Trench Coat should be a better item. That's a good thing.
Trench Coat is actually pretty much unplayable except for 2 units right now, and one of them happens to be Nefiri, I think. It's actually really interesting. The other is like Aurora. Fascinating.
And then Marksman Emblem, kind of underperforming as well. We're going to let it shred 2 armor per shot instead of 1. We want things like Marksman Misfortune, for example, to be something you could consider playing to shred a bunch of armor on the enemy team. So Marksman Emblem gets a small buff. All right, Augment's
Wait, sorry. So this is actually... Oh, sorry. I thought this was Marksman. Never mind. This is just a Marksman Emblem buff. That's interesting. Yeah, Marksman Emblem is the lowest emblem in the game. I think it's like a 4.7. But I think it's also because Marksman Emblem baits you into playing Aphelios right now. So that's part of the reason why that emblem does worse. But I'm not upset about this. I can't even really tell how powerful this is until I just like watch... Because like theoretically, it's really good on a Rage Blade holder of the Marksman emblem, or like an attack speed carry of it. But I can't really tell. It's just hard to decipher.
On the silver, it's just the 3 hero augments: Jax, Poppy, and Silas all getting buffed. On the Jax side, it's just a straight buff. More damage per stack, can stack higher. Jax gonna be more threatening. Cool. Poppy, same thing. More damage and more damage from Cyber Boss. If you're playing Poppy Hero Augment, you usually want him to be the Cyber Boss. That damage should be worth it. It will be. Cool. And then Silas, more damage based off his health as well.
Hero Augment.
Now, the only thing with the Silas buff is we did have to kind of nerf his recast effectiveness, because if these numbers get really high, then he can just delete entire boards in like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
So, little bit of a compensation, but overall, this is a buff to Silas.
Okay, so they're buffing all the hero augments. There's actually a little bit of tech with some of these hero augments. Like Jax hero augment is actually really good with range extension. He just literally turns into Jax from set 8, the hero augment Jax, which is actually funny because it's a hero augment. You remember the Jax DD, the infamous Jax DD. He actually is really good with range extension. So this is one of those things where if you knew, you know. Button mash, Poppy. I have no tech for this. I think this augment's terrible. I literally hit it one time at 2-7 naturaled, and I went 5th. It was, I mean, part of it was because I hit Kabuko really late, but it was still pretty terrible, all things considering. It was, okay, I mean, what it was it was good until people hit, and then it was terrible. So it's like good at bullying the 1-stars, the 1-star 4 cost, but then once people hit, you just didn't do anything anymore. And then Silas, yeah, I mean, it's probably just like the same as usual. Just play Silas and Anima Squad or something. I'm not entirely sure. I actually have this is probably the hero augment I play the least of, so I'm not entirely sure.
Because if these numbers get really high, then he can just delete entire boards in like
It's
3
true.
seconds.
It's a good point though.
So, little bit of a compensation, but overall, this is a buff to Silas. On the gold side, Cyber Deck. I saw a few players finally recognize this, but Cyber Deck, kind of the most broken augment we've ever shipped at gold, I think.
Really?
Turns out, if you look at an augment like BRB says wait 3 turns, and then you get 2 full items. Cyber Deck says, I'll give you 3 full items, except they're better than full items. They're the exact optimal cyber item you need.
I mean, that's
a
pretty
little
good.
much.
Pretty good.
So it's going to go down to 2. It's going to go down to 2 items.
Damn.
It will still be a very good augment, but it might not be, you know, the most broken gold augment we've ever shipped. So,
Wow, there's been some pretty broken gold ones. Okay, you guys remember? Hit me with some of the most broken gold they've ever had. I'm thinking about like, what was it, like binary airdrop? That's like kind of up there. I guess binary was actually a silver at one point. Everything must go. Yeah, that's right. Flexible 2-1. Flexible was a gold at one point. Yeah, that's right. He said he's being hyperbolic. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, it might be up there though. I mean, Asa has also said that he just think it's one of the most broken augments ever. But I mean, there's probably this could go on the list. I guess. I guess you know what it is. This is where augment stats not being public covers a lot of this, because I feel like if I saw the number, I'd be like, holy cow, it's so broken. But I knew it was good. I guess I just never in my head registered as one of the strongest gold augments ever made.
and I'm being a little hyperbolic there. We've definitely shipped worth. Binary used to be like a silver,
there it is.
So, you know, it's not the
There,
most
okay,
insane, but it is currently the strongest gold augment in the game. So
Yeah, literally what I just said. Okay.
Chugbug. Chugbug is also getting buffed. One of the most fun parts about Chugbug is that chance to proc where you like belly knock up the champion.
Yeah.
That's really fun.
Yeah.
We're going to let him do that more. So instead of 35% or 40%, it's going to go up to 50%, and it's going to do 30% more damage than it does on live. So that should be fun. Transistor. This is also a pretty fun buff. This is the Bastion augment where they gain a bunch of attack speed after their shield wears off. So Transistors are going to get double the attack speed they did before.
Okay.
If you want to get the 6 Bastion Renekton Transistor build going, should be fun. And then finally, Trial Run. This was the other Exotech augment, and yes, you're noticing a pattern. The Exotech augments were pretty good.
Very good.
The Golem is going to get less health and AD per star level, so the Golem won't quite be as tanky as before.
Okay, I'm starting to feel bad because I've bought forward with Cyber Deck and Trial Run before. I've gotten 5th with both of these, and now I feel stupid. Thanks, Mort. Chugbug is pretty bad. I think it's the worst augment in the game, so I think this makes a lot of sense.
On the Prismatic side, mostly focused on the black market augments here. Chemtech Overdrive is getting a very large buff here. You're going to get 200 more health for those 3 spots and 5% more attack speed, but the trade-off here is it's not going to appear at 2-1.
Oh.
Getting Chemtech Overdrive at 2-1 and getting 3 gold per turn on top of these buffs was a little too much.
That was like the only... I mean, I felt like Chemtech Overdrive was only pickable on 2-1. I mean, I guess it's probably fine on 3-2. But now they're buffing it a lot. 450 HP is a lot.
So Chemtech Overdrive should be better. Cruel Pact. Cruel Pact is actually going to get buffed.
Whoa!
I'm sad. I haven't seen this augment yet.
Cruel Pact buff?
You'll basically heal 4 per turn instead of 3. So Cruel Pact should actually be a lot more playable and pretty exciting. Double Trouble gets some more bonus stats, 5 more bonus stats. And then the other big thing is a very important bug fix here.
What?
When you 3-star the unit while they're on the bench, you'll properly get the 2-star copy of the unit. So, cool. Lifelong Learning, you'll gain more HP per turn. Great. And Scoped Weapons, because people aren't having enough fun with range Shakos and range Renekton's is going to get 7%
Jax.
more attack speed as well. So scope weapons should be even better.
Scope weapons, adaptive Jax, adaptive strike Jax. Don't sleep on it. That sounds really, really good. I actually have played 0 games of Cool Pack, 0 games of Double Trouble, 0 games of Lifelong Learning. So I can't really speak a lot of these like 2-1 augments. Actually, I don't even really know any Double Trouble comps. Right now, Double Trouble works for a reroll composition that does not depend on its vertical. And so I guess you could play theoretically like Double Trouble. Like it's usually good on melee reroll. So Double Trouble Shaco theoretically is supposed to be something that you could play for, but I have no idea. So Twisted Fate, yeah, exactly. You could play for it, but it's probably not that amazing. I'm very curious what is Double Trouble is good with at the moment. You could probably there's also been moments where Double Trouble was also fine for 4 cost, but that was when the bag size was bigger. The bag size for 4 cost used to be 12, so you used to be able to play like double 4 cost. Probably not the case now. Rengar, yeah, probably Rengar.
Finally, and this is a big one here, is the circlets. Now, if you know from this set, the circlets were an experiment to try to make it so that certain emblems weren't just like free wins at the end of the game. And overall, that's been relatively successful. We're not seeing, people just get a gold augment 10 anima squad, which is good. But some of the circlets are underperforming by quite a bit. And
yeah,
so
because they're terrible.
Up quite a bit here. So they are a prismatic augment here. So instead of getting a 3 cost of the champion, you actually can get a 4 cost of the champion, which is pretty cool on 3-2.
Okay,
and
wow.
for the really weak ones, they've also got an item sometimes. Now, it's only a component. It's not a full item. But for a prismatic, this feels closer to correct and should hopefully buff them up and make them feel more appropriate. So, some examples here is Bastion Circlet goes from a Galio to a Sejuani and a Giant's Belt. Bruiser Circlet's actually doing okay, so it just gets a Giant's Belt. Dynamo gets a Misfortune and a BF Sword. Dynamo Crown, by the way, we buffed from a Jhin to an Elise. That's a separate thing. Executioner Circlet, you get a Vex and a Sparring Glove. Marksman Circlet, you get an Aphelios and a bow. Rapid Fire, you get a Zeri and a BF Sword. Slayer, you get a Zed and a Sparring Gloves. Strategist Circlet, you just get a Giant's Belt. Techie, you get a Brand and a Tear. And Vanguard, you get a Leona and a Giant Belt.
Okay, this is a very big set of changes, and each of them, it's like you have to talk about them individually because of how important those units are to the composition. So if there's anything that we've learned from last set with the trait augments, the trait unlocks, was that getting a defining 4 cost for your composition in stage 3 can immediately swing the game. You're talking about martial law and the Silco hero augments, right? Where you would get something and all of a sudden your stage 3 becomes twice as good. It is prismatic, so it's like different in terms of compared to the gold. I mean, martial law was a freaking gold augment, or menaces was a freaking gold augment. But getting an MF at 3-2 is really good if you can find a way to itemize it as well. And if Aphelios becomes good, if Xerxes becomes good, these are like really, 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 really big changes. And it's different for each comp because like some comps won't care nearly as much. I feel like Sejuani is not as big of a deal. At least that's my impression compared to the carry, because your damage can significantly increase. Getting Aphelios could be pretty powerful as well. You can start scaling the Golden Ox, and Aphelios is a really, if you can like find a way to stall for him early, it'd be really good. So some of these changes are profound. It's gonna be a really big different dynamic on 3-2 now. Just have to find out and see, I guess. Like I'm not sure. Techie giving Brand also gives you a tier. It's pretty good. Okay. Hey, you take the Slayer Circlet to if you're playing Cypher and you get a Slayer Circuit and you get you just start playing 4 Cypher from there, or you get 5 Cypher even. Whoa. Okay.
So again, these circlets should be more tempting as augment choices. Now,
Dang.
You'll notice none of the things with chase traits got this. We're not going to give you an Anima Squad Circlet that also gives you the Xayah that also gives you an item. If you're taking Anima Squad Circlet, you're taking it to chase 10 Anima. You don't need more power. So,
I like it. Smart.
A couple changes for Hyper Roll and Double Up. Hyper Roll got a few of the things that should have been tuned a little bit better. The Shaco AD per kill, this number is incorrect. It's supposed to say 1.5 to 2.5. So Shaco AD
55
Zach Blobs
AD
now
per
grant double HP and AP. Cooking Pot goes to 70. Tactician's Cape turn delay goes down to 4. Reinforcing Skeleton goes from 40 to 70.
Jesus.
So, cool. And in Double Up, we're definitely hearing some reports, especially from our highest elo Double Up players, that there's a bit too much resources going on. So what we've done is in the gift armories, there are more options. Some of them are a bit more deflationary. And then overall, in Double Up only, we have reduced the amount of gold earned from PvE rounds. So you'll see compared to a normal game, there will just be less resources in Double Up. There's probably enough as it is. And so this should hopefully help Double Up feel a little less inflationary. And then finally, bug fixes. Time to sprint these. Gargantuan Resolve now works on Ghost Armories.
Great.
Cool. Prismatic Ticket no longer grants rerolls from Think Fast rerolls.
Wait, what?
Cool.
That used to not work, so I actually been telling people that's not a thing. Whoops.
Unstable Evolution no longer triggers on summons. Great. Survivor, Tomb Raider 1 and 2, Last Stand, and Final Reserves are all exclusive from each other. Cool. Warpath counts player damage dealt to Ghost Armies. This is a nice one. If you're ever a Warpath player and got a Ghost fight. Zac Clobs now have the proper spell icons. Zac Copy gains the HP from Street Demon Hexes. Cool. That's a small Street Demon Zac buff. Samira no longer cancels the armor reduction from other Samiras.
What?
If you were running multiple Samiras, apparently that was bad.
Okay.
Share the Spotlight VFX are no longer hidden under certain arenas. Senna's splash damage from her auto attacks correctly triggers Titan's Resolve. Divinicorp champions copied by Viego's Soul Killer no longer activate their trait bonus.
What?
All traits now work correctly with Hall of Mirror clones. This is a big buff, by the way. Hall of Mirrors had a very bad bug where they just weren't benefiting from traits at all.
Oh.
Now they will. So Hall of Mirrors should be a lot better.
So before on the A patch, I actually played a really cool Hall of Mirrors Kabuko game back when Kabuko was him, and I was like, man, this should theoretically be kind of good. And then it's like nothing happened. They just like all of them died, and I was like, oh. And I guess that actually makes sense because it looked like all the Kabukos were benefiting off of Cyber Boss, but they weren't.
Lunch money should grant proper gold at proper intervals. For those of you that are experiencing like lunch money
Unban that
being
guy,
very
yeah.
bad, this fixes that. Memory Bank is banned after stage 3, so no more 4-2 Memory Bank. Support Spire's stun no longer ignores CC immunity. Malicious monetization doesn't count PvE rounds as one of its gold generating rounds if you got it on like 3-5 or 4-5. Malicious monetization will properly grant gold if an enemy is killed by an ally that was summoned during combat. Cool. Fixed a bug with Unstable Evolution only giving 33 HP instead of 333 HP. This is a buff to Unstable Evolution. So if you're considering that augment, that just got a 300 health buff.
That's a lot more than just a bug. I read this and I thought this augment was absolutely terrible. We wrote it in the TFT Academy guides, the black market augment stats, right? And I was like hovering over this for Unstable Evolution. I was like, your champions randomly gain one of the following. And I'm like, 33% tax is pretty good. 33 AD, 33 AP, 33 health? That's terrible. And so, and it could go on a summon. So you could literally put it on like a unit you didn't even want, like a Nitro or like a Golem. So yeah, all right.
Hyper Roll fixed a missing round in stage 8. And Hustler and Investment Strategy 1 and 2 are exclusive. And there you go. That's the patch. Now, again, some of you might be going, why didn't you buff X champion or nerf X champion, things like that? Again, our goal was not to dramatically shake everything up here. Our goal was to keep things relatively similar, but a bit more refined and a bit better and a couple more options. This is not as big of a patch as you might expect. Next patch will probably be a little bit bigger. But again, we want to see how these changes really shake things out before taking some big home run bats to the set and see how things land. So there you go. All right, well, like I said, hopefully you're enjoying Cyber City. So far so good. I know the competitive scene's been pretty intense right now between things like Box Boot Camp and everyone trying to do their ladder snapshots. So it's been pretty
a little
wild.
intense.
I know people have been figuring things out, but at the
People
same
losing
time,
their
it's been
minds.
really cool to see all the different like guides being posted and people kind of figuring this set out. So pretty deep. So cool. All right. That's going to do it for me. On behalf of everyone who worked on Cyber City, enjoy, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks. So that's going to do it for this patch rundown. Until next time, take it easy.
All right. Thank you, Mort. Thank you, Mort. Job well done. I think overall, I like a lot of elements of the patch. I still think that the systems is one of the biggest changes. In general, it's like the thing that I complain the most about. But he's saying it's not that big of a patch. I actually do think it's going to be a big patch. I think taking down Nitro to be worse for tempo is already going to change a lot of how lobbies play out. That in itself, on top of the system changes, are going to be big. I mean, yeah, you can talk about like what comps are going to be on top, but the way you approach early mid game right now is purely oriented around Nitro. And if not Nitro, then you either reroll or you like gamble for some Cypher cash out. So that it's going to be a very different patch next patch. At least the way it plays. Maybe the comp power level ends up being similar for like the way things look on the tier list. But my prediction is that the patch is going to be really big change. Is 6ox back? It was never here to begin with, so kind of hard to say that it's back. 6ox is just legitimately awful.